Hello everyone and welcome back to the Armchair Sociologist. Today we are continuing with our methodology series, and in this lecture we will study one of the most important qualitative techniques, that is participant observation. Participant observation forms a core part of your Sociology Optional Paper 1 under Unit 3 Research Methods and Analysis, specifically within techniques of data collection. By the end of this lecture, my aim is that you will clearly understand what observation means in sociological research, what participant observation is and how it differs from simple observation, the different types of participant observation, overt, covert, and degrees of participation, the advantages and limitations of this method, the various key theoretical critiques, and most importantly, you will learn UPSC ready examples from classic ethnographic studies. So let us begin. Before we understand what is participant observation, let us first understand what is observation. Observation is the systematic watching and recording of social behavior in real life settings. It is the foundation of qualitative research. Why? Because it allows sociologists to see social life as it is present naturally. Now let us understand what is the importance of observation. Now let us look at the importance of observation. First, observation helps us capture actual behavior, not just claimed behavior. Often, what people say they do and what they actually do can be different. Observation allows the researcher to witness the behavior directly in natural settings. That is number one. Number two, it is useful when questionnaires or interviews cannot reveal real meanings. So, people may not always be able to articulate their experiences, or they may give socially desirable answers, like we saw in desirability bias in the last lecture. But their actions, routines, and interactions often communicate meanings that words cannot fully express. Third, this is the second. Third, it is used across methodological approaches, across range of methodological approaches like positivist, interactionist, ethnomethodologist, because it helps the researchers understand both the structure and the process of everyday social life. So it is used across methodological approaches. A classic example of this is by Atkinson in 1978, who observed coroners to understand how they classify death as suicide. Through observation, he uncovered the practical reasoning and decision making processes that coroners rarely express explicitly. So, observation not only reveals what people do, but also helps us understand how and why they do it, the meaning behind it. However, like any other tool, observation also has its limitations, which we are going to see next. So, what are the limitations of observation? There are several important constraints that limit the effectiveness of this tool. First, some settings are closed, they are inaccessible. For example, families or private conversations or elite groups or important state meetings. They cannot be observed directly because the researcher does not have natural access to these spaces. So, this prevents observations from capturing the social behavior in certain sensitive or restricted environment. Second, people mostly modify behavior when watched. So, this is a form of social desirability bias. Individuals adjust their conduct to appear more acceptable, polite, or socially appropriate. As a result, the behavior observed may not reflect what actually happens when the researcher is not present. Number three, researcher cannot always blend in naturalistically. It is not always possible to enter a community or group without standing out. When the researcher's presence feels artificial, it alters the situation and affects the data collected. So, because of these limitations, sociologists often move from simply watching the group to actually joining the group. And this brings us to the next method, participant observation. So, what is participant observation? Participant observation is a tool of data collection method in which the researcher observes by participating in the everyday life of the group being studied. So here, instead of standing outside and watching, the researcher now enters and joins the group and studies the social behavior from within. This is the core ethnographic tool. Why? Because this tool provides us with deeper and insider understanding of meanings, interactions, and social processes. Now that we understand the basic idea of participant observation, let us move on to the various types of participant observation. Now let us understand the various types of participant observation. Number one, overt participant observation. In overt participant observation, the researcher reveals their identity. Because the participants know who the researcher is, it fulfills the ethical requirements of informed consent. However, there is an important risk attached to it. People may modify their behavior when they know they are being studied. This is a classic observer effect. So while overt participant observation is ethically transparent because it is taking the informed consent, it carries the risk of behavioral distortion. Now second, covert participant observation. In covert participant observation, the researcher hides their identity. As the word covert suggests, the group does not know that they are being observed. So the advantage is that this method can be used when the access is difficult or the behavior changes in the presence of researcher. However, this method raises a very important question of ethical issues, especially the issue of deception, because informed consent has not been taken. Now, third, we will understand the types of participant observation with respect to degrees of participation. So, participant observation is not always a full immersion. Now, first could be full participation. That is, the researcher joins the group completely. For example, researcher Venkatesh, he joined a street gang during his study of gang leader for a day. So he participated fully in the group's activities. So Venkatesh, he did a study on street gang and the name of the study was Gang Leader for a Day, and he participated fully in the group's activities. That is full participation. Second is partial participation, where the researcher participates in some activities but not all. And third could be peripheral or minimal participation. The researcher remains mostly an observer with very limited involvement in the group routines. So types of participant observation includes overt participant observation, covert participant observation, and with respect to different degrees of participation, full, partial, and peripheral. So now that we have understood what is participant observation and its various types, now we can move to the next part of this lecture, that is the advantages of participant observation. Now let us understand the various advantages of participant observation. So the first advantage is that participant observation produces high validity. What does this mean? It means that participant observation generates detailed real life data, authentic data, because the researcher is directly involved in the everyday life of the group. This method helps us to understand the meanings and the interactions, the motivations and informal dynamics that cannot be accessed through questionnaires and interviews. So it captures the actual behavior of people in their natural setting. A classic study, now let us understand with respect to a study. A classic study demonstrating this is William Foote White's 1955 Street Corner Society. So White joined a street corner gang in Boston whose informal leader was a man named Doc. By participating in the group's daily activities, White was able to observe authentic group dynamics, patterns of leadership, decision making, loyalty, conflict, negotiation. These are the insights that no interviews or questionnaires can ever reveal. So participant observation produces high validity data. So participant observation provides us with an insider's perspective. This means that it helps a researcher to see social life from the actor's point of view. A well-known study illustrating this is Sudhir Venkatesh, Gang Leader for a Day, 2008. Venkatesh spent several years with a street gang in Chicago and closely accompanied the gang's leader, JT. Now, by moving with him, that is the gang leader, through his daily routines and observing the negotiations and decision making happening within the community, Venkatesh was able to understand why gang members made certain choices. Now, these insights were impossible to learn from outside, and they emerged only because Venkatesh observed the gang from within, that is, as an active participant. So, this insider's perspective is one of the strongest advantages of participant observation. Now, we move to the next advantage. If you have watched till here and you're finding this lecture helpful, please hit the like button. It really encourages me to keep creating clear, high quality sociology content for you. Also, do share this video with your friends or anyone preparing for sociology optional. Now let us continue with the advantages. Another advantage of participant observation is that it captures meanings, motivations, gestures, and interactions, the subtle aspects of social life that people may not express verbally. A good example is Beverly Skegg's study on working class women and femininity in 1991. Because she was fully immersed in the group, she was able to observe the emotional cues and identity negotiations that women never articulated verbally. Now, these insights were possible only through close participation. Next, participant observation can also produce unexpected discoveries. A classic study demonstrating this is Parker's study of delinquent boys in 1974. Participant observation unexpectedly revealed in the study informal rules of gang fights, something Parker had not planned to study initially. The method allowed him to see hidden social patterns that only emerge in natural settings. Next, participant observation helps in building trust and rapport, and it leads to richer and deeper data. This can be seen in the William Foote White study of 1955 of street corner society. Because the members treated White like one of their own, he gained access to private conversations and decision-making process. Such intimate access is rarely possible through interviews or through surveys. And finally, it is the best method for studying marginalized or hidden populations. A strong example is Sanders' study of sex industry in 2004. Her sustained presence within the sex work environment provided insights which were unavailable through formal interviews alone. So these advantages show that why participant observation is such a powerful tool in qualitative sociology. Now, since we have understood the strength of this method, now let us move to the limitations of participant observation. Now let us understand the limitations of participant observation. First limitation is that it is time consuming in nature. Participant observation requires long-term immersion. A good example is Beverly's case study on working class women in 1991, wherein she had to spend years building trust with women before they shared their authentic experiences. So participant observation often takes a very long time. Next is the risk of physical danger. So sometimes a researcher participates fully in the group's activities which can put them at risk. For example, Patrick's 1973 study of Glasgow gang. He feared retaliation and even violence during fights, revealing the physical danger researchers face in covert participant observation. Next is the ethical issues, especially the issues of deception. A major ethical problem arises when the researcher hides their identity in covert participant observation. In Holdway's 1983 study of police research, he concealed his role as researcher, so he did not reveal his identity. This raises ethical questions about deception and informed consent. Next limitation is the problem of memory issues. So in many participant observation settings, especially the covert ones, the researcher cannot openly take field notes. So if the field notes cannot be taken openly, then researcher relies on memory. An example is of White Street Corner Society study of 1955, wherein White became a member of a local gang, and because he could not write in front of the members, he had to reconstruct the events later from memory, which may reduce accuracy. Next limitation is the loss of objectivity, or we can say going native. So deep involvement can blur the researcher's neutrality. In Fielding's study of policing in 1983, he admitted that he began sympathizing with the officers which he was studying. This shows how prolonged participation can lead to deep involvement, and that can blur neutrality. And last limitation could be the researcher's influence on the setting. The presence of researcher can unintentionally alter the natural behavior. So in Sanders' study of sex industry in 2004, participants modified their speech, behavior when the researcher was present, revealing how observers can unintentionally alter natural behavior. So these are the limitations of the participant observation, first being time consuming, then the issue of physical danger to the researcher, ethical issues of deception and informed consent, memory issues when notes cannot be taken openly, loss of objectivity, going native, and researchers' influence on the setting, on the researchers' influence on the natural behavior of the participants. Now, since we have understood the limitations of the method, let us now move to the theoretical critiques of the participant observation. Now, let us look at participant observation from the positivist and interpretivist perspective. From the positivist perspective, it is seen as to being too subjective in nature. That is, the data depends heavily on the researcher's interpretation. There is no replicability. Another researcher cannot repeat the exact same study under the same conditions. And researcher influences the behavior often. So their presence, identity, and participation can change how people act, reducing reliability. Whereas interpretivists, they defend this method. According to them, meanings can only be understood through interaction. That is, social actors create meaning through everyday practice, and participant observation allows the researcher to access those meanings directly. Second, depth matters. Depth matters more than standardization. Interpretivists value rich, contextual, in-depth understanding over numerical precision. So, participant observation is the most appropriate method for understanding meaning, for meaning-oriented sociology. So, if the goal is to understand motives, meanings, this method provides the closest access to the lived reality of the group. So, in conclusion, we can say that participant observation offers depth and insider understanding. It demands time, it many a time poses ethical issues and safety risk, but despite its limitations, it is very important for meaningful interpretive sociological research. Now, after the completion of the entire lecture on the topic, I request you to please answer the following UPSC questions based on the topic. The first question is, what are the ethical issues that a researcher faces in making use of participant observation as a method of collecting data? This question came in UPSC 2023 and it was a 10 marks question. Second question is, participant observation is the most effective tool for collecting facts. Comment. This question came in 2016. It was a 20 marks question and it is a very comprehensive question. So now answering both these questions will consolidate the knowledge which we have learned in this lecture. I will also be creating a bonus lecture where we will discuss both these UPSC questions in detail. Meanwhile, I strongly encourage all of you to attempt these questions on your own using whatever you have learned in today's lecture. This practice will really help you to consolidate the concepts and improve your answer writing skills. Great job finishing the lecture on participant observation. Completing this lecture shows your commitment to building a strong foundation in research methodology. Now, to get the complete picture, please take some time to go back and analyze how this method differs from the other tools of data collection. Your next step should be to master the key quantitative tools of social surveys and questionnaires. Also, revisit the interview method. You can click on the links on the end screen to continue. Please keep building your understanding step by step and let us conquer the remaining topics in research methodology together. In the next lecture, we will meet again to understand ethnography. Till then, all the best.